What are we talking about today?
Well, today I thought we would talk about poo, because as we've been talking about in the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about the importance of the pillars of health. And one of the things that we hadn't touched on, which I realised last week, was that we hadn't spoken about elimination. Do you want to take the poo combo away?
So we haven't touched on poo.
No.
And it is such an important thing because there's an old saying in nutrition that it's not you are what you eat, it's you are what you do not excrete. So you hold on to it,
Like that.
and it becomes you, because you, whatever you don't let go of, you reabsorb, which is usually bacteria that's done its job and died, toxins, stuff that your body doesn't want. You essentially recycle it again and again.
Yeah.
What is it from a Eastern medicine viewpoint?
Well, I would say that the way I look at the like excretion is all about, or elimination is all about how, like, that to me tells me what's going on in your digestive system. That explains to me how the functionality is, how strong or weak the system is, because on a whole that provides us chi, and if we are running on empty, we have no chi. And if we don't have that power or that energy, we can never actually get what we need or want out of our food. So that's a really big thing for me. It's not just about like the actual poo that comes out at the end is gives me a really clear indicator of what's going on inside.
It tells you exactly what's going on, and it doesn't lie.
No.
Either.
Absolutely
So,
not.
yeah. Sorry.
Although, you know what's hard? Now, Matt has this obsession with his poo chart, and he really wanted to bring it in today for show and tell, which it's a really great poo chart, but it's also just like poo's dressed up. And it's
Can we just say it's a cartoon chart? It's not an actual picture of people's fecal material.
Yeah, but I mean, it's called the Bristol chart, but I mean, it's got a name and it's fine, but Matt just likes his because it's got the poo dressed up as things, and anyway, it's not cute, it's poo. And anyway,
disagree.
We can put it up on Instagram for you
Yes.
guys. There, you know,
Yes.
there you have it, Matt. So in that sense, what we see when we speak with people, and this is what I was trying to say, was that it's sometimes really hard to actually identify what your poo is like when you're not really aware of the Bristol chart or aware of Matt's chart, because you don't sort of understand what consistency actually is an optimal bowel motion. So can you, Matt, take that away? Let us know what are we optimally looking for, or what are you looking for in terms of poo?
Well, firstly, up until I think it was 1960, since 1960, the definition of constipation is now 1 in every 3 days. So if you pass fecal material once every 3 days, by I think it's medical definition, you're not constipated. Prior to that, it was 12 inches. Passing 12 inches of fecal material per day. That's that's what normal was.
So can we do that? 12 inches in English.
12 inches, that in English. I don't know how to say that in Spanish, but 12 inches, what's that in centimetres? 30 centimetres?
About 30 centimetres?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's not like one in one go.
Okay.
You can have a couple of goes at that.
You get a couple of goes?
Yep.
All right.
Throughout the day. But generally speaking, it should be around that per day.
So we want to see 30 centimetres of
fecal material per day.
Okay, and you don't mind how the fecal material looks?
So it's got to look well formed.
What's that?
So it's like, it might be easier to tell what it shouldn't look like.
No.
Okay, we'll go with what it looks like. I want to say a nice brown colour.
Nice brown.
Nice brown colour. It shouldn't when I say well formed, it should kind of hold itself together.
Yep.
Not sink.
Okay. No
To
sinking.
the bowl. No, shouldn't stink. When I mean stink, it shouldn't be like you've walked into an invisible force field.
Okay. No stink, no sink.
Yeah. Shouldn't see food particles in it.
No food.
Shouldn't be really runny.
Yeah, well that
So
makes...
like a soft but not hard type thing.
Okay.
That kind of consistency.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be kind of shouldn't look like rabbit poo.
Yeah, okay.
Like
So
gelatin.
I'm going to take this over because you're going into the things it shouldn't look like and not the things it should. My thought, 30 centimetres of nice brown, sausage shaped, no edges, complete.
Okay. Yep.
It can be in a couple of pieces. However, from my perspective, I actually really want to see someone do that in one go rather than
Ideally,
numerous.
yeah.
However, if it does take a couple of goes, but the big thing is about how you feel afterwards. You should feel complete.
Yeah.
It shouldn't feel like you have more, even if you've only done 15 of the 30 centimetres or 20 of 30 centimetres of that day. It should feel complete. It should feel like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah. You should
After
essentially
every
walk
time.
out of the bathroom high-fiving yourself. It should feel that good.
Yeah. Yes, okay, so understanding that the idea of having really solid bowel motions comes down to, from my perspective, the ability for your body to actually digest. And so I'll just touch on this quickly. So from my perspective, one of the biggest things I see, or at least the way that I treat, is that I like to treat the actual system and function, so systems functionality. So it's not necessarily about what's in the gut.
Yeah.
I'm not hyper fixated on going in and understanding what's inside the gut, because I see the gut as a way of your body's creating balance. So no matter what is actually there right now, your body's tried to create balance, and that's why it's like that. And then because we can see and we understand like what's going on in the gut is so profound. It's having, I think you touched on this very early on about the gut-brain axis, and we were touching on how it impacts how we think and feel. And I actually coined this idea of this thing called the toxic shithead syndrome. TSHS.
Yep.
TSHS?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. And that is literally when you've had too much shit or toxins inside of your body, and it actually starts to fumigate up to the brain and has this like really distorted function on your body. So you actually on your brain and how you start to process and how you start to think, and it and then all of a sudden you start eliminating and it functions better. And it actually does work the other way. I still believe in toxic shithead syndrome if you are eliminating too quickly. It's also the same, you're still leaving remnants behind, and it has. And these actually have quite a big relationship in terms of emotions in Chinese medicine. So everything's loose and moving through too quickly, not actually digesting and taking the goodness out. We're not actually reaping the rewards of that digestion. And if it's too long, well then we're just holding on to everything. We're not actually letting it go. But one of the big things in treatment that I find I see in a lot of people, that they go in and they start like pumping themselves full of prebiotics, probiotics, whatever it might be, not really having too much of an understanding of the actual functionality of the system. And I think that that's something in Chinese medicine that we are quite particular about, at least I am as a clinician of Chinese medicine, is that I really want your system to work well. And I do believe that you should be able to consume a lot of anything, and your body will figure out what is good and what it wants more of, and then what it doesn't, and it'll move it out. And so then we can really trust that intuitive eating, that intuitive, all of those aspects, sleeping, moving, all of those things, because that gut is like actually processing what it needs to in the way that it needs to. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is strong, healthy gut is what I aim for, and what I work with is to maintain that chi, or that energy within the gut and the gut process itself, not necessarily about cleaning out the debris that is in there in that moment. Because if you have a strong functionality of your digestive system, it'll do the job. If you have a weak function, it won't do the job. No matter what. No matter how much goodness you're putting in mouth, if there's a weakness in the actual functionality of the system, and I see this time and time again, a lot of women go and do lots of beautiful, really great testing and functional testing and stool testing. They get all these results. However, the treatment ends up being, we've got to clear it out. And there's no focus on the actual strengthening of the system, and then it ends up going around in a bit of a circle, and eventually comes back, like you do find it, but it takes a lot longer process, I think.
100%. It's our engine room, right? That's really where it all happens. There's more neurons in the gut than there is in the brain and spinal cord combined.
And can I just touch on what is the gut?
Well, the gut, depending on what book you read and the definition, for me the gut is the entron, which is the tube from mouth to anus. For me, personally, that's the gut. Yes, you can talk about your liver and your small intestine and all that kind of stuff, but it's all involved.
Yeah. So,
example, if you eat something that you have an immune reaction to, hypothetically, and it's different for everyone, right? If you have something you have a reaction to, you put that in your mouth, you can stimulate a mucosal response. So you can get a blocked sinus from that. So saying digestion is just in the gut is, for me, technically inaccurate. It's everywhere. And it powers everything.
So the entron.
The entron.
The entron of potential toxic shithole syndrome.
More like that. That should be the name of your book.
Yes, when I have my spare years.
Yeah, spare couple of years.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and do you want to touch on a little bit of, like, from your perspective in treating the
So from a visceral manipulation point of view, it's also a neural and vascular manipulation as well, because you've got the solar plexus. You've also got the inferior superior mesenteric plexus.
Okay,
They're the arteries that feed into that system.
Just touch on what that is.
So that's the blood supply to the digestive organs.
Okay, solar plexus.
Solar plexus
being central.
Is the central, purely from a digestive point of view, it supplies it polices the digestive system.
Okay, so the policeman of the digestive system is the solar plexus, and then the
mesenteric arteries.
Oh, mesenteric arteries. Okay, yeah.
They actually, so a lot of people come in bloated, right?
Okay.
That would be typical of a permeable outer layer of the small intestine. The small intestine's actually got 3 parts, and the bottom part, which anchors itself to the spine, is called the mesentery. To give you an idea how strong that is, you could have an open cadaver, get a crane, lift the small intestine up, and the entire body will go with it.
Okay.
So it's there. It's its own organ. It supplies the entire small intestine with blood.
Okay.
And you can't digest without blood, because that's the nutrient delivery system. For those organs. So as a visceral manipulator, it's typically either liver congestion or somewhere in the colon for me. So fecal material loves to get stuck in the flexures of the colon, which is the bendy bits of the colon.
And from your perspective, why does that happen?
Oh, myriad. The first thing that I investigate is hydration. I'm not going back there.
Okay.
From there, you can look at quality of the food and also how stressed they are.
Okay.
Because when we are stressed, we have valves between each organ that link each organ together, and they're highly psychogenic, which means they're very, very reactive to stress. So they typically respond by either completely opening up, where everything will just get flushed, it'll go straight through you, or they'll lock down, or they'll go dysfunctional. So that's when you get a build up and lead to your special magic toxic syndrome.
Toxic shithead, mate. It's not that difficult.
No. very common too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially like this idea of those fumes like moving through, like it really, I mean, I thought I was like, genius. How's no one coined it yet? But yeah, okay, cool. And so I guess from my perspective, like optimizing our elimination is just as important as optimizing the food that's going in, because we should essentially be able to digest anything that we put inside of our body. Okay, maybe I'm not talking battery acid or something like that, but we should be able to eat McDonald's every now and then and have no issues with doing so.
Or very little issues at best.
Yes. And and the same with, with any food, it should be, our body should go, oh, okay, yeah, I see this is the food part of it and this is not the food part of it, and I can distinguish between the two, and I can move that through, and I can maintain this, and I'm going to take the nutrients out of this, and then I'm going to release the rest. Which
could work on kind of twofold. One, it's maintaining that balance between good and bad, because you do need the balance.
Okay, yeah.
Someone who's 100% healthy 100% of the time are likely quite miserable.
Okay.
Also, having that food so let's say you have French fries, which were probably not designed to eat the way they've been prepared by that particular establishment.
Yes.
It's going to likely cause some kind of immune reaction at some level.
Okay.
But if you have that in small quantities, then you get that tiny immune response, which actually builds up the white blood cell count. So it's actually strengthening it over time. I'm not saying French fries. I'm not recommending that we eat French fries to serve our immune system. Yeah. But those little kind of spot fires,
it's an option,
if you will.
Yeah, totally.
One of the other things is also just giving yourself permission to do that.
Absolutely.
From time to time, and not feeling guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really big one in our world where we have all this information, and I mean, we're sharing this information so that people understand how we see that and what we think is optimal, and how they can potentially, hear that and then come in and get treatment, and then and then be optimal in all the ways. But it is something that we have started doing at home, at least with words, with our children, my children is saying things like, we eat these foods because they're really purposeful, they really serve our bodies, they really help us grow really big and strong, or just to grow stronger and allow every cell to function really well. But then also we allow ourselves to have soul food, because the soul also needs food. And so now my 4-year-old is keen on soul foods, but she also can express to me okay, yeah, so is it time for soul food now, or when do we get to have the soul food?
So what's an example of a soul food?
Soul food for us, like the other day, was ice cream.
Yeah, nice.
And then soul food can also just be takeaway.
Yeah.
That's
the quote unquote naughtier things.
Yeah, the things that are probably not home, prepared at home, not necessarily, definitely not unlikely organic. Definitely have bits and pieces of toxicity in them that their bodies will digest out. But yeah, something that's really interesting for us is that when one needs to poo, everyone needs to poo, and I'm gonna use that as a segue to our last aspect of overall optimization of health from our perspective, and that segue being the relationships. And so I think this is really interesting. I haven't really looked too much into it. I'm mindful of going too deep when it's in your home life, because as a parent or as a human living in relationship to other humans and to environment, it's really easy, especially as a clinician. I don't know if you find this too, Matt, but we just can get really stuck in our clinician brain. And so I find that when I notice things like this, I'm like, oh, what could it be? What sort of what's going on? Are we all just oh, elimination? And then everyone's like, yeah. And so we've got one on the potty, one on the toilet, one hurry up.
Yep.
it's quite a, or maybe it's just mum in the toilet and then everyone's in there too. Like that also happens, I think. It's like this, it's like a slow paced time. Everyone's like, oh, mum's slowed down. She's just chilling on there. And they're like, hey, guess what? Now that you're quiet, let's talk. Let's hang out. But yeah, so that's really quite interesting about just experiencing that more and more, and seeing both my kids will be like, one will need to poo, and then I'm talking like the next one will poo pretty, like if they haven't yet, they will need to poo.
So you've all synced your...
It's a sync shit.
Yeah,
We're synced and shit.
That's cool.
It is pretty cool actually. It makes for a very busy bathroom time.
Yeah, do you have to schedule that in, or how does that?
I don't know, when someone needs to go, we all need to go. Yeah. But it's, yeah, like it's only a period of day, only a period of time. Yes, so my segue into that relationship is that we are all interlinked and interconnected, especially to the people that we spend the most time with. And namely, those people most of the time would be your family, your work colleagues, your closest friends. And those people have a really big impact. They have a big impact on the way you think, the way you act, the way you function, and who you are. So that also is a really important part of being well. And
that's your environment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can sometimes make and break someone on their journey. You can be a really healthy person. If you're in a toxic environment, you don't have the guts to deal with that, then yeah, you can be really susceptible to their shit.
Yeah.
I'm on fire.
Look at you go. I do really find this is one of those really powerful things. I work generally with women and making babies or pregnancy. It's really quite a common thing, and especially over the years. And I think that I find that if I see a patient come in and they are really quite anxious about having a baby and really like there's lots of stuff going on for them, a lot of the time what is like paramount to their healing is their partner and them healing their relationship. And I have numerous examples of people that have really tried to make a baby with someone, and it's not overtly toxic, but there's something going on. There's something missing there, and that constant relationship or that relating with this person that is not symbiotic to their energies and not
like their body and everything. Their being is just saying no to it.
No, but then the clock that says I want a child is so loud, and so it just is like, no, I can just put that aside, I can put that aside, and I can just go forth, and then you know, babies aren't created. And then there's like, and that isn't to say, absolutely not to say that when you do find, or if you do find yourself in a space of fertility, suboptimal fertility, that doesn't mean to say that, you know, you're in a toxic relationship. However, I have seen that numerous times, or even the partner that they're having a baby or wanting to make a baby with isn't necessarily, they're not in a bad relationship, but that person is in poor relationship to their environment. So they're feeling low, depressed, or dysfunction, erectile dysfunction really common, and all of these things. And that is very clear to me that there's a dysfunction in the relationship to what's going on around them. It's not always, we could look at it could be food, it could be hydration, it could be thinking, the way they're thinking, it could be all these things, but then it is about the relationship and the relating. So it's the relationship between them and themselves. Yes. Then it's you and them. Yes. So there's that relationship, but also there's the relationship with work, friends, family, just society in general. I mean, think of all the societal conditions that are placed on us all the time. Yeah. And you know, in the Western culture, you're supposed to be married and kids by what, 30-ish, according to society. Yeah, but I mean that's the
I mean, I used to be engaged back in the day, early 30s, I think it was, going back. And when I realised, I came to a realisation that no, that's what society wants. It's not what I want right now.
Yeah, okay.
That it happened for all my sisters because I've got 4 older sisters, and they turned a certain age, met the person, got married. That's just what you did.
Yeah.
So I was just following that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I kind of went into that realisation for myself, that's when I was able to actually really let go. And I felt really light. So that was a way of me detoxing, in a sense.
Yeah.
So what would you see, is there a relationship pattern that you would see?
I think there is. It's a lot of the time it is, you know, we're just playing out patterns over and over. So if we are relating poorly in one aspect of our life, we're going to relate poorly in other aspects of our lives. And a lot of the time we have figured out coping strategies based upon people around us. I myself are absolutely included in having poor coping strategies in terms of relationships, and then learning and continuously learning what really is healthy in that way. And so for me now is understanding, okay, like feeling my feelings, understanding my feeling, understanding whether there is a pattern behind that, and then becoming aware of that. So like I don't stick around in places that don't feel good, but in saying that, I'm very open to forgiveness, and I'm very open to moving through when and if that feels available to me or available to someone else. And whether that's in people relationship, or whether that's in work relationship, or in, you know, myriad of, you know, home, if like home space doesn't feel good, if the energies of a space doesn't feel good. I have to admit, I moved around a lot in recent times. I've only been in a place for maximum 2 years at a time in the last 13 years. So I feel like in that change, it's created a lot of like, a good friend of mine often talks about how much she just loves moving. Like it just creates this like euphoric feeling of clearing and moving and detoxifying, and she doesn't use these words, but just like that, like loves that clearing. Whereas I definitely grew up in one home. Up until the last 13 years, I lived my whole life in one house. You know, it was everything. I have had a lot of attachment to that space, and so then it took me a little bit of time to realize how maybe toxic that space really was. Or as much as there was love there was also a lot of history there, and you know, all of those things. But even like that, for some people, I know that there's the sensitivity of people being in mold-filled houses, and you know, if the lung function isn't in the way, like moving in the way that it needs to, then there's going to be a high susceptibility to, you know, sensitivities in that sense.
A lot of the time,
yeah. So it's like, it really depends on, you know, one person can have that sensitivity and the next person isn't even impacted. And that can be caused, like obviously plethora, maybe the pregnancy, maybe that person, maybe the birth, maybe the early few years. But yeah, this is something actually, it just reminded me of that idea of the importance of relating in terms of, okay, so obviously I'm on this journey of little children, growing life, birthing life. That is my current kind of framework of world. But it is like that thing of like pregnancy being, you know, where does it all start? And like, well, it sort of starts pre-conception. So we need to like go there. But if we miss that step, then we need to work on pregnancy. And then if we've missed pregnancy, because like, you know, you're 40, you missed pregnancy, right? So you can't go back to your pregnancy and hope your mum was like eating the foods and looking after her soul and being aware of all the relationships, that she's having enough hydration, all these things. So we have to kind of like, you know, we can move from the pregnancy and then go, okay, like how about with birth? Like, let's do our very best to support that in the most gentle emotional experience that can be. And then moving from that, if we miss that part, then let's ensure the relating that's occurring in those first hour, in the first days, in the first weeks, in the first months, years, and let's ensure those things. We like do it our very best in that. And same thing there, it's never 100%. You can't nail this 100%. However, if we have a loving mother and a loving father who understand their own shortcomings and are always able to kind of reflect and respond to their child, and then if we miss that bit, then we go into the teenager who's got all of the, you know, because the parents missed all those bits, well then we just support the relationship that they're in. We miss the teenage years, we become young adults or adults, then we still have space and time. And I think that's one of the hardest things, is to think, you know, I sometimes have 70-year-old patients that are just like, yeah, well, I'm cooked, you know, just fix my physical symptoms because I'm cooked, and there's no way I can go into the depth of everything that's happened in my life. But I have a really strong belief that you do have the power to have an influence and a massive impact if you change the way you're relating to the world around you. And so obviously that comes to introspection, awareness of what environment am I putting myself into? How am I relating to this environment? If I'm in my bedroom, how does that make me feel? Does it light me up? Does it make me want to share this space with another human? Or does it make me want to like sleep really well? Does it invite beautiful sleep? Does it invite that in? Is that what it brings to me? If I walk into my kitchen, does it invite me to cook good food? Does it make me want to enjoy the space? If I walk into my lounge room, how do I feel in my lounge room? Do I feel like I want to, you know, enjoy space with people there? Do I want to have chats, or, I mean, like whatever you want to do in your lounge room? But it's like, you know, being really conscious of all these spaces that you spend all this time in. And obviously, I mean, the toilet just help eliminate, get out. Well,
it's not only physical, but it can also be very symbolic. Because when we're constipated, we're literally holding on to shit. And you wouldn't be surprised, but most people are quite surprised when they come to me, let's say lower back pain, knee pain, sometimes headaches, whatever it is, and you trace it back to the constipation thing, which you then trace back to them holding on. And they're actually holding on to something toxic, be it a memory, a grudge against someone, whatever that looks like for them. And you clear that, and it literally, the whole body just lets go.
You just shit himself on the bed.
100%. And I would call Nuala to
mob it up. Hasn't happened yet.
No, but I think it's an important point that you make. That how do you feel within your own space? And if you don't feel great in that, what's missing? Can you identify what's missing? And do you go explore for what's missing? Sometimes you need a plant, pet, whatever that is. And I've just lost my train of thought.
Sorry. And I guess you probably don't even need to like fill the void. I think that's one of the biggest misdemeanors.
We'll go with that.
We'll just, So it's like this idea that, oh, okay, if I just feel it, you know, I think that's what our world and our culture offers us.
Well, that's what we're told to do, right?
Yeah, we fill the space.
The shiny stuff.
The shiny bits and pieces, and so a lot of the time we're just trying to fill a void, and actually that void is just a disconnect from the connection and relationship with ourselves. And when we go deep into that, we understand that we are not just the physical self. We have many layers.
Well, to keep that somewhat simple-ish, we are a mind, body, spirit complex. Each of those, the mind, the body, and the spirit, can get, let's say, constipated, in a way of speaking. So when you're not living your congruent self in your environment, you are, let's say, spiritually constipated. If you've got too many thoughts that are going so fast, it's like static on a TV, it's going so far you feel stuck, you're mentally constipated.
Yeah.
And more often than not, actually correlates to physical constipation because the body mirrors the mind. And we wear our choices.
Yeah.
So in that regard, you've got to just own that first. But then it's then the life detox as well, because you need to, like for me, it's about feeling safe enough to do that as well.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people have done that, and these are like a 0 to 100 miles an hour people.
Yeah.
Straight away, and they've gone, let's just say, a little bit too far. Which is
in terms of what? What are they doing?
Well, they've gone so.
Drinking enough water, eating the right food. What are you talking about?
So we'll talk about nutrition, hydration, sleep.
Okay, yeah.
This person,
a particular person,
yes, went 100% from, let's say, 80% processed food to 99% full organic within a day. Yeah. So hats off for that. Then went from drinking, I think,
a little bit of water.
No, he had 5 coffees and about 6 cans of Coke.
No water.
Which is about minus 20 cups of water.
Yes.
He went from that, we worked out 3.1 litres was his
number
goal. So he went to 6.
6 litres.
6 litres. Like, straight away.
Just doubled it.
Doubled it.
To make up for all the
Just to make up for all the lost years.
Okay.
This is the kind of personality.
99% organic, 6 litres of water. Sleeping?
Sleeping, he couldn't sleep. That was the point I was making. He couldn't sleep for about 3 days. And he was starting to go a little bit loopy. And then we had to have the moderation chat.
Yeah.
And just, it doesn't have to be 0 to 100, but it can be just little implementations. So for your relationship with food, ideally in the perfect world, everyone would eat organic, biodynamic and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people, if they're not in a position to get that, then, okay, let's do organic meat first. And then we can get a roll on with that and then go veg and fruit, etc. Let's just double your water or increase it by ½ a litre first day. I've worked with some people, it's taken them 6 months just to drink the right amount of water.
Yeah, because the right amount is different for everyone, right?
Exactly.
But then also, their bodies aren't capable of consuming that. They're just going to weed it all out.
Exactly, yeah.
They've spent all these years. I think this is really something to bring it, like, to kind of bow it all together. Is just that reminder of your body is literally doing everything from what your input is creating. So whether that is food, hydration, sleep, excretion, relationships, environments. We've got a couple more things on that. Breathing, movement. And so you've got all those things, and every aspect of those health pillars, your body is then taking on and going, okay, cool, let's find your balance. And then it'll find and
constant search for balance.
Constantly searching for balance. And then it just like pushes out the outcome. Here's your outcome. Okay, you actually have constipation because, well, that's what you're putting in, and this is your outcome. So that creates our balance. I had a patient the other day talk about how their gut was demonstrating all of these signs and symptoms of constipation and loose stools and like just alternate. Yeah. Okay. And then they were saying that, there was this bacterial overgrowth that was contributing to increased testosterone because it actually eats the estrogen or something. I don't know too much about it. However, I was like, but that makes perfect sense because you need more testosterone in order to function in the way that you want to function. Your body found this perfect way to find balance. Your cycle's gone off because you're not functioning optimally anymore in terms of what we would see as optimal. But your body's find balance, and it is giving you that. It is literally giving you the feedback loop or the outcome or the fruits of your reward because of what you're putting into it. And I think that's something that's so important to remember, is that your body and your whole being is so capable of creating balance for you, and it will create the balance of which you provide. And that's such a reminder of like optimizing health, and optimal health from our perspective is all of these things that we've spoken about. Having an awareness, and then having that desire of that awareness, and doing all these things can be full circled. However, every single day, no matter where you are and where you're starting, your body is creating balance for you in what you're providing it.
And sometimes it requires a little bit of out of imbalance to create the balance, because you've gone so far that way, so it's got to figure out how to do that to find its equilibrium. So I think that's a really good point, yeah.
And I think on that note, we will like wrap up our talk on optimization of health and understanding where we started from.
Yeah, I think it's just the point we're trying to make is that it's a complete balance, and that balance is different for everyone. There's no two diets that are going to work the same for everyone. There's no two ways of living that's going to help save two people or create balance in two people. It's our own responsibility to find out what that balance is and honour that, but also mastering that balance point. So if you are going to have a few drinks with work colleague, let's say, you know what to drink, how much of it to drink, and how to balance, counter that, either side of that as well.
Yeah.
That's what, for me, that's what true health really is. It's knowing those points and being aware of it.
Yeah, it's and I think that is like, it sort of does that whole wrap up for us, is that what we might suggest as being optimal from our perspective mightn't be for everyone. However, what we aim for is balance and moderation in everything, where we can have salt food and we can also eat good food. We can be in a crappy environment, like out late at night and not going to bed at the right time, as long as we then 80% of the time are actually following our body clock that tells us and reminds us when we're tired. We have that awareness and that desire for that awareness, and that's what keeps bringing us back to a really nice equilibrium that feels balanced. And like for me, I can absolutely attest to that balance right now in myself, falling pregnant quickly. Not really. I obviously am constantly doing the preconception work in a sense, because that is my world, because balance is my ideal place. But yeah, it's quite an interesting experience to live that and be like, oh wow, yeah. And one of the biggest things that I can definitely see has changed in the last, say, 5 years of my life is that even though there's lots of factors that I'm like, oh my God, like, where am I? What am I? But there's a lot of different things that are now, in my relationships to lots, my environments, the way that I work, the way that I function, the way that I parent, all of those things are coming more and more into this balanced alignment, and they feel much more easeful. And with that ease comes a diminished amount of other.
The whole journey is you learning about you. And that's what it's all about, right?
There we have it, Wizzo.
Cool.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
We hope you have a great week, and we'll be back
See you next time.
next time.